Good morning, Power Boosters. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Kevin. This is the first tank that I've just burned through. I just filled up of back on 87 octane after my 3 tanks of 93 octane, which, as you know from the last video, if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. It didn't yield as good of results as I had hoped. And unfortunately, the first tank back on 87 yielded the worst results yet since I got the truck. So hand calculated, I posted 19.46 miles per gallon. My first sub 20 miles per gallon since getting the truck. The trip computer said 21.3, so once again the trip computer seems to be off. This is one of the most egregious separations of what the computer shows and what is actual hand calculated. So obviously not great. I don't know if it has to do with it being colder out. Like, for example, right now it's 39 degrees Fahrenheit. It started off a little warmer than that at 42 when I was filling up, but still it's relatively cold day today. It's supposed to get warmer, maybe in the low 60s by the early afternoon. But it's still cold. It's been generally colder. It's been pretty windy. We had a pretty major weather system come through the area that created a lot of wind and rain, and I don't know if that was affecting the miles per gallon, and that can be maybe something that I can look forward to for the winter, unfortunately, but was not a great thing. So I don't know if the computer that regulates what fuel you're using needs a little time to get acclimated to the 87 again, or if it shocked the system by going to 93 and then quickly back to 87. That remains to be seen. But I'm going to continually, obviously, hand calculate every time I fill up, and we'll see what happens with going back on the 87. Hopefully I don't continually see sub 20 miles per gallon. Another thing that I thought I would do was to do a miles per gallon loop. So I'm going on a trip on the New York State Thruway system, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's pretty boring. It's mostly a straight line right across the state. So it's fairly, relatively flat. It's not super flat, but it's probably a good opportunity, because I'm going one way and then I'm going to turn around and come right back the other way, and for the majority of the time I'm going to be going 70 miles an hour. So this will kind of show us what MPG you can get going 70 miles an hour, because a lot of people say once you go over 60 your MPGs start to drop significantly. So we'll see if I can post some good numbers going these speeds. So come along with me for the ride, and like I said, right now it's going to be colder, but by the time I turn around and do the reverse loop, it will be warmer. So it'll be kind of a hodgepodge of a miles per gallon loop, but I think a worthwhile experiment either way. So I'll check in with you in a little bit. All right, so we're about 55 miles right now. The temperature's still pretty steady. It's 41 degrees now, a couple degrees warmer than what it was when we first started. And it's showing 22 miles per gallon on the trip computer, which in my experience, like I said, always reads a little high. So maybe it's closer to 20 or 21. And I forgot to figure out how many miles it was to the first, I'm only going to one place, and then I'm turning back and going around back home. So at the end of this, we'll figure out how many miles each way was by dividing it in two, because I think it's going to be close to anywhere between 160 and 180 miles round trip. All right, we'll check back in. Okay, so we've just started the return trip, and it is definitely warmer out. It jumped up to, it's maybe about 4 or 5 hours later, and it jumped up to about 64 degrees. So quite the weather day we're having here. It's no precipitation, not extreme wind or anything like that, but it'll definitely be kind of a real world test and not over overly scientific in a control environment at all. So yeah, this is what I'm doing. So the computer has this, I'll flip this around here, at about 22.7. So far we've driven 84.8 miles, and only 2.4 of those have been electric. So we'll see how we end up when we get back to the pump, and see what our overall round trip mileage was, and also round trip hand calculated miles per gallon. All right, so the results are in. I will admit, on the trip back, things like it being warmer, I'm sure, affected it. Also, unfortunately, I ran into a traffic jam, which made it so that I couldn't go 70 miles an hour for quite a while. But I would say that I was probably going 70 miles an hour at least 60% of the time, if not a little bit more. And, you know, it was never going to be a perfect experiment anyway. This is more of a real life MPG loop. I ended up going 167.3 miles round trip to the same place and back in the same route. And when I filled up once again with 87 octane, the miles per gallon thankfully were once again above 20. It was 21.6, which is pretty good for me. And the trip computer still showed higher at 22.1, but that's a little bit closer, you know, to what it has been. So overall, I think that the truck probably responds pretty poorly to bad weather, and I can probably anticipate in the winter to be getting sub 20 miles per gallon. At least that would be my prediction. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but the last few days there was a low pressure system that just kind of sat in my area, and it was a lot of wind, a lot of rain, like torrential rain, and I think that might have impacted the performance of the truck a little bit. And then once again, it could have been a little bit to do with the fact that I had just been on 91 and moving to 87. Maybe the engine's computer does something with that. I don't know. But either way, that was the results, and that's all I've got for you this week. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you guys in the next video. Kevin!